In the feminine Mystique, published 50 years ago, Betty Friedan devoted a chapter to advertising called The Sexual Cell. Marketers tried to make housework sound important, scientific, and therapeutic. For example, the instant cake mix was pitched as a creative outlet. By promoting shortcuts for housewives, though, proved a tricky situation. Friedan interviewed a research expert on ads who explained to her that ads had to be careful not to scare women with the prospect of making them so efficient that they would have free time. So naturally, Betty Friedan asked him, "What's so bad about free time? Why doesn't the pie mix ad tell women that they could use the time saved to be an astronomer?" So the ad expert just seemed to take it all in, and he comprehended the suggestion, and then improvised an ad right there on the spot with the tagline, "The astronomer gets her man." Ouch. So I guess you can say there was a revolution of sorts over the past half-century, since women can now become astronomers and enter any profession they want. But the seeming unlimited female access to the workplace still carries an air of the theoretical. We find women CEOs, but only 4% in the Fortune 500 are women. Once unthinkable, women have joined the military, but there were 26,000 sexual assaults just last year. Somehow I don't think women can be all that they can be in the Army. Anne-Marie Slaughter wrote, "When I was an assistant professor at the University of Chicago Law School, I tried to explain to a prominent senior colleague why I had not yet managed to write one of the 10 or so articles required to get tenure in 3 years. He listened to me, then said, 'Journals don't publish excuses.'" Excuses. Well, yeah, excuses run pretty deep in that tightrope walk between job and family. The issues are felt deeply by all parents, straight or gay, trying to raise children while remaining professionally viable. There's always one parent who must scale back career goals in order to provide good parenting. Two parents achieving balance in career and family remains almost unattainable still today. If you want to care for your children, then how do you stay on the fast track at work? A classic example is the boss who asks you to attend a meeting out of town. And what do you say? "Sorry, I can't go. My child just came down with the chicken pox." In the workplace, every task turned down is a risk to your advancement. Refusing to attend a conference away from home or reneging to putting in the extra time to complete a project on schedule, it's like asking to be replaced. The excuses may be valid for the parent. The excuses don't fly in business. No, journals won't publish excuses. And that's why Sheryl Sandberg's recent publication, Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead, has become such an overnight sensation. Her premise is that women lean back too much in their careers. In managing a family alongside a demanding job, there's too much leaning back. Sandberg expresses pure exasperation in watching highly talented women holding back from chasing top jobs because they're either thinking about having children or already have young children that need parenting. You would think logically that these women could turn to their partners for help, but the partner is still working. 38% of professional men work 50 or more hours a week, and it's usually more. Betty Friedan's feminine mystique rocked the cultural boat 50 years ago. Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In is rocking the cultural boat today. They both offer a similar message against a very different social environment. These luminary women leaders, radicals both, represent how little the past 50 years have wrought in bringing any change to the status of women or transforming their sense of self to emerge in the workplace with confidence. The topic of gender equality back in the early 1960s didn't even consider whether or not it was possible because it wasn't even desirable. A woman's pursuit of her career automatically precluded any feelings of fulfillment as wife or mother. Even psychiatrists made grand pronouncements that normal women renounced all aspirations outside the home so they could meet their feminine need for dependence. It's inconceivable today to equate the feminine need with dependence. I confess sometimes feeling a little irritation with some of the young professional women of today who show disdain for the term feminist. But they have no idea of the box in which women were stuck before Betty Friedan called it what it was. I have this impulse to put some young women in a time capsule back to the 60s and then ask them how they feel about the term and the concept feminist. Really not that bad. So Betty Friedan, whose premise, and I think she was right, regarded women as lost souls. Betty tried vigorously to ignite their indignation at being cast as home goddesses, reinforced by TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, Ozzie and Harriet, Father Knows Best, where the housewives put on makeup to vacuum the house. In 1962, that's a year before the publication of Feminine Mystique, 1962, more than 2/3 of women surveyed by the University of Michigan researchers agreed that the most important family decisions, quote, should be made by the man of the house. Keeping this in mind, I find it hard to believe that today's successful women actually criticize Friedan for failing to supply concrete political proposals to change the status of women. But Friedan always maintained that the personal was political. She focused on transforming women's personal consciousness. She challenged the major assumption of that era, that it was women who always had to make the coffee in the office and watch over the children at home. Changing consciousness does not happen overnight. So that book came out in 1963. As late as 1977, 2/3 of all Americans, male and female, believed that it was, quote, much better for everyone involved if the man is the achiever outside the home and the woman takes care of the home and family. 17 years later, 1994, it was just the opposite. 2/3 of Americans rejected this assumption about men achieving outside the home and women taking care of the family. So you'd think we were getting somewhere. But by 2004, Americans' preference for male breadwinners and female homemaker actually rose to 40%. Women were leaning back. By 2007, 60% of women said they would prefer to work part-time. But businesses made no concessions, not in fair compensation, not in providing on-site daycare centers. Women began leaving the labor force in droves. More mothers with children under the age of 3 were working in 1993 than in 2004. I do not believe that women suddenly changed their ideas about having both fulfilling work lives and fulfilling family lives. But the research clearly shows they were leaning back and continue to do so. But women didn't give up on gender equality as an ideal. They just hit the wall in a nation whose business and professional practices resist providing family-friendly reforms. Last year, more than 2/3 of women between the ages of 18 and 34 expressed that in addition to having a family, being successful in a high-paying career or profession was one of the more important things in their lives. So women's consciousness had definitely changed during the past half-century. Undoubtedly, Betty Friedan would be pleased to hear that women have finally arrived to the place where they expect more than their lives than cleaning house. But Friedan, like all of us, I think, would be mystified, if not appalled, by how little our culture accommodates the needs of women. After all, 72% of both men and women between 18 and 29 agreed that the best marriage is one in which husband and wife both work and both take care of the house. But this remains an ideal simply out of reach. Not everyone can afford building a nursery right next to her office while Mary Poppins takes care of the children. A woman character in Whitney Otto's latest novel complains about the way wife, mother, and career create an unsolvable equation. She hated trying to solve the mathematics of her various roles.